UFC 290 delivered on so many levels, from the main event to the opener to even the undercard and what they did with Robbie Lawler and giving him a really, really nice tribute. I think the UFC did an excellent job with that. The card was great. And I'm going to start at the top with Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez and how that fight went. Listen, I'm going to tell you something, folks. I have not always been a huge fan of Volkanovski, but I must say he has really put me in a position where I have to change my tune completely. I think, and I try to find a way to be unbiased as much as I can with this. So I try to stay away from what these guys do in their personal lives, even though their backgrounds, their story, what they do in between fights really tells a lot of the story building into a lot of these fights. And for that, Max Holloway has always been one of my favorite guys. And I think the way the first two fights went left a sour taste in my mouth on Volkanovski. Obviously, I understand how good he was and how good he is, but it just made me hesitant to really give him the gusto, to be completely honest. And then he came back in that third fight and wiped the floor with Max. And then he's starting to finish fights now. That's the game changer. He is excellent at executing the game plan. He is really good at And I hate everyone keeps using the scramble brain thing that he said in the lead up to one of his fights prior to, but he does. He has people confused and worried about what attacks they want to deploy because you're worried about what he's doing at all times. And I think, to Yair's credit, in the third round, I'll give him some props, man. I think he was winning the exchanges on the feet. I think he did really good with some of those. He was dangerous. He caught Volk with some nice shots, to be fair, and he was doing well. But there's a thing. Volk is always going to adjust, and you have to be prepared for that. And sure enough, Yair throws a kick, and Yair was talking about in the lead up to this fight, and his team was talking about not being able or not throwing open kicks. Because if you catch those, we seen what happened in the first round. He threw one of those kicks, got taken down. Volk controlled them and basically beat him up in the first round. Second round was kind of similar. Yair landed a nice shot, and Volk shot in, ended up getting the takedown and controlling him again. And then in the third round, he closed the show when Yair started to have some success. Beautiful switch right hook, landed clean. It rocked Yair. And then the finishing sequence was, I think, one of the best you ever see. A lot of guys tend to rush those, and even the guys who are a little bit patient don't do it that efficiently. And one of the things that we always talk about, and we always criticize guys for shooting for a takedown in that instance, but I think that was actually the perfect thing that Volk did, because Yair's dangerous. He can always deploy some sort of weird strike that could change the game in an instant. What Volk did was take him down while he was going for the finish, just to mitigate some of the risk and mitigate Yair being able to throw something impactful while still on the feet and getting finished. And he just stomped him out. Just beautiful work, beautiful execution from Volkanovski. I don't think he has anything else to prove. I know there's a talk about GOAT this, GOAT that. You know what? He has a very good case to be the GOAT at featherweight. I still would lean Jose Aldo, but I certainly wouldn't argue if anyone feels passionate about putting Volkanovski there. In terms of pound for pound number one, I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay with him being pound for pound number one. I understand the argument against John Jones, even though I still think John Jones is the greatest of all time, and I'm not mad. I was actually okay with them putting him as the pound for pound number one after he captured the title against Cyril Gane, but you got to give Volkanovski at least a look. You got to give him a look. I was not in the crowd of giving him the pound for pound number one after losing to Islam Makhachev, even though he made a great account of himself. But I do think this win over Yair, who was a very dangerous opponent, should push him up to that pound for pound number one list until Jones gets another win or until Islam Makhachev comes out and has a successful dominating title defense. So hats off to Alexander Volkanovski. On the preview that I did before, I predicted him to win, even though I did realize the threat that Yair Rodriguez was. Volkanovski came out and executed an excellent game plan and he sort of made it look easy. Nobody's beating that guy at featherweight. I like Ilya Topuria, but I think it's too soon for him. Volkanovski is him. Moving on to that flyweight title fight, Brandon Moreno defending his title against Alexandre Pantoja. What a fight that was. Crazy fight. Insane fight at an insane pace. To be completely honest, bro, it looked like Pantoja blew his wad in the first round. Like he was trying to go for a finish. He definitely rocked Brandon and dropped him and had a dominant first round. But Brandon came back showing that just Mexican toughness and grit and taking round 2 pretty convincingly. Then round 3, I thought Pantoja looked tired, but he was landing some impactful shots. He started mixing up the wrestling. Same thing in round 4. Round 5, I thought he managed round 5 well. I think the striking exchanges, I felt like Moreno in round 5 started to get the best of him a little bit, but I think Pantoja did enough to make it even enough to where Pantoja got in the clinch and he took the back. You can't just accept that position if you're Brandon Moreno. You can't do that. You have to find a way to get out of that position. Because I understand the argument that he didn't do much when he took the back. But yeah, like if you sit on someone's back for 2 minutes, and even if the shots aren't super impactful, you're still landing damage. You're still landing shots. Even if the shots aren't significant, it's control time and it's doing impactful work. You're going to win that round if the striking was comparable. The striking didn't have to be Pantoja was up a little bit, or it didn't have to be dead even. They were comparable. Brandon Moreno was out ahead, but you can't get control for 2 rounds. It does not work that way. So I was arguing with one of my good friends on Twitter about this, and his point was the shots that Pantoja did land on him while he had his back for 2 minutes wasn't really harmful. And do I think those shots were damaging enough that's really hurt Brandon Moreno? No. But at the end of the day, you cannot get controlled for 2 minutes and somebody is landing small shots. Even if they're small shots, it adds up and you have to look at the entire round. And Brandon Moreno didn't do enough to separate himself on the feet to make that back take from Pantoja not meaningful. So I thought it was an excellent fight. I don't know if I want to see I don't want to see him running back again. Brandon Moreno just got out of a quadrilogy with Davison Figueiredo. He's lost 3 times to this guy. There's no reason to run that back. I think the flyweight division is wide open because it seems like anybody could beat anybody. I think Brandon Royval was probably going to be the challenger next, but we'll have to see. But amazing fight, one of the best fights of the year, one of the best fights in just recent memory. And I think it might be the best flyweight fight I think I've ever seen. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the fights between Moreno and Figueiredo. I think the first and the second one, those were bonkers. But yeah, amazing fight. And he just rocked. I think he rocked the mic at the end with the shout out to his mom and about his mom. And I'm talking about Pantoja here, but he was talking about his mom raising, him and I believe his brother as a single mother. And then he was talking about his dad and saying, like, look at me now. Are you proud of me now? Just deep stuff, but cool stuff. And, yeah, we got a new champion at flyweight. Moving on to what I think is probably, to me, the biggest story of the night. Dricus du Plessis knocks out Robert Whittaker. Nobody's seen that coming, really. Nobody can just sit up here and say they've seen that coming. Yeah, there are some guys who predicted that there's a chance of that happening, but what a surprise. And what's crazy about it is, like, du Plessis, before I get into the him and Izzy bit, he is a pretty good competitor. He has won fights, and he has a strange fighting style that doesn't really look good, but it just seems to find a way to win. And I think there was a lot to be made about his nose, and like it's fixed now so he can breathe out of his nose, and him fatiguing and that sort of thing coming into this fight. And then just the wild style. He doesn't really have great defense. He doesn't move his head very well. He's easily to be timed. Robert Whittaker definitely took advantage of that. Whenever Whittaker did go, he pretty much landed whatever he wanted to. But I think the size different. Duplessis is a huge middleweight. Him and honestly, like whenever Duplessis got robbed to the ground, I was like, yo, this is a big son bitch. He's huge. Like, it was worrisome because I understand Whittaker came up from welterweight, but he just looked, they didn't look like they were in the same weight class, to be frank. So I will say Duplessis, to his credit, he dialed it back a little bit. I feel like he was a lot more under control than he is normally. So that's very good and commendable by him. Way to make adjustments as you go up the ladder. You have to make adjustments, and you have to just be able to adapt within a fight. And I think he did that. He absorbed some of the stuff that Rob was bringing to him early. He did it in both rounds. If you look, Rob got off to good starts in both rounds. But then whenever Duplessis started to land, you could just his shots seemed a lot more impactful than Rob's. And we've seen Rob's put people's lights out like there's nobody's business. Yeah, he wasn't. Duplessis has a chin, bro. He was not worried about the shots that was coming back to him like that. So, yeah, that was crazy and surprising. I was so surprised. Yeah, it screwed up my parlay for sure. 100%. So that leads me into the Israel Adesanya and Duplessis stuff afterwards. A lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people in MMA media are like all weird and cringe about it. And I'm just like, maybe it's one of those things where the political dynamics of the MMA community and how they see things are, I feel like it is created kind of a wall for like the understanding of this whole thing, because they're making about, oh, why is he doing XYZ with the N-word and this and that. Yeah, there's a reason that he did that, and I'm not going to be the one that explains it. But there's a reason that he did that. He was making a point. So, like, I don't want to go too deep into it. I thought it was funny. I kind of enjoyed it. I don't even necessarily think Izzy was drunk. I think it's something that he had said that he'd been hoping for. He wanted to shut Dricus up, and I think he kind of got caught up in a moment. And I don't think anything's wrong with it. Guess what? It's going to sell the fight. And they're going to turn this around quick, and everybody's going to be watching. That's going to be a big one for Izzy. That's going to be a big fight. And I'll tell you this, Izzy should win. Izzy should beat him, even with some of the improvements that Duplessis made. He'd have to take an even further step forward to be in the position of where he's going to really challenge Adesanya. But I give him a way better chance at doing that, seeing his step forward against Whittaker. He was under control. He has power in his hands, and he has a chin. And that means that Izzy's really going to have to get him out of there. And it's probably not going to be a quick fight. So, and the longer fights go on, it increases the chance of, crazy things happening. So he's just going to have to be careful. Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner, sick fight. It was amazing. I think Jalen Turner, he was clearly compromised, I think, from the weight cut. Whatever happened about him missing weight, I think it showed itself because, he just seemed like he blew his wad in the second round, midway through the second round, and he started getting teed off on by Dan Hooker. He was doing well in the round, almost put Dan Hooker out, and Dan was just like, no, bro, I'm still here. So hats off to Dan. That was a tough, gritty win against a game opponent, against someone who I think still has a bright future in a division, but he's going to have to put some things together. He's going to have to figure out some of those issues. You can't be fading at this level. You'll get humbled pretty quickly. So, hats off to Dan Hooker. I'm sure he's going to get a better opponent as he tries to work his way back up into contention. So, yeah, good for him. It was a good win. It was a good night for CKB. And then the last one, Bo Nickel, I felt real bad for the Val Woodburn thing because when he got the call, you know, they had I think the embedded cameras following him. He was all by himself, and he had a really good attitude during fight week. So I really wanted him to. I had no expectations that he'd win the fight. Come on, bro. Like, the UFC's throwing you a bone and saying, hey, come over here and get smashed by Bo Nickel, you know, so you can be in the UFC or whatever. Here, take some cash and step in for us. He'll get another opportunity. I think here's what I'll say. As long as it lasted, he was game. It's not like he didn't try. Bo Nickel is just about as good of a prospect as you could see. And I still think we need to have a slow progression of Bo Nickel because he still has so much to prove. Somebody has to take him to a second, third round and get him into a deeper fight, just to see what he's really made of. You know, what's going to happen when the gas tank starts to work its way toward empty. How are you going to look then? Are you going to be able to dig deep and really put forth good effort when that happens? So I'm not a skeptic of Bo Nickel. I just want to see a gradual progression of opponent, and not any, steps back or anything like that, which obviously this one was a weird situation because Trayshawn Gore pulled out. But yeah, I don't want to see Bo Nickel rush because I do think he has the potential to be great. However, I think, let's start getting him some guys that's going to push him a little bit. Let's get him some guys going to push him a little bit. He needs octagon time. He needs the experience because he has hardly any, and he hasn't faced much adversity, if any. So, hats off to Bo Nickel. And then just the last thing about the Robbie Lawler, what a way to go out, man. What a way to go out. That's one of the best go outs you see. Guy on his retirement fight, you don't see this type of thing happen often. And I think he looked good. He was aggressive at the point of attack. Once they got close, he did his thing in the clinch. And just a nasty, nice, good finish. And then the tribute they did, you don't ever see emotions out of Robbie. And he definitely got a little bit emotional there. So just hats off to Robbie Lawler on a fantastic career. Been watching him for years. And, I think the fight was awesome. And hope he rides off into the sunset. All good. He had an excellent career. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video if you got anything out of it. And I appreciate you all for watching. Peace.